Wow, I actually managed to unmute myself and get everything running on time for once in like 5 episodes. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pure Joy podcast, a bi weekly exploration into what brings people joy. Today, with me, I have my guest, Stephen Joel. He goes by Zen Kaiser on the social media strata that is Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, all of the the span of social media you can find him on. But he is here today to talk to us about something that brings him pure joy. So first, why don't you introduce yourself to us here on the podcast, and tell us who we're talking to today.
So I'm Zen Kaiser. I'm virus streamer over on Twitch. I stream mostly RPG games since those are my main games to play and what I'm most invested on. I usually stream from Monday to Thursday around 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. That will be Atlantic time since it usually is the same as Eastern time, but since you all over there are in daylight saving time, so here it doesn't affect me. So I'll promote it as a length time. But anyway, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, absolutely. We like to start each of
hmm
these episodes off with a little question, and that is something that you found joy in today, just like a small joy of the day. Looking back on it now, maybe you didn't, notice that you found so much joy in it, but hindsight's always 2020. So where do you
hmm
think you found joy just today?
Today,
Hmm.
I haven't found it yet, but I usually do it around game when I'm about to play games. Usually that's what brings me joy after work. Usually today will be like I will be at work, but since over here usually holidays for the public, I work for the public. How do you say it? For the government practically. I'm a teacher, so whenever there's like a holiday or something like today, President's Day, off. I have the
Off.
day off and it's paid.
Okay, okay. And
Yeah.
where are you, if you don't mind me asking here on the podcast? Because you've mentioned
Well,
it's not like in the us over here, you've said.
no, I'm not in the state. I'm in Puerto Rico.
In Puerto Rico, right, right,
Yeah.
right. That wasn't I know we know each other. It's just more of a bounce for the flow of the audience.
Yeah. Don't worry
So
about it.
did you grow up in Puerto Rico?
Yeah. I never been out of Puerto Rico. My first trip to the United States was in 2021.
Okay, okay. So
Ah,
lived in Puerto Rico your whole life. Wow. Okay.
yeah.
So find yourself with Monday off. I mean, I would say that there's joy in looking forward to something as well.
hmm
Like I was looking
Yeah.
forward to this finally, like actually
Yeah.
being able to do it with all the reschedules.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I've
know, I
gone through a
know.
lot.
But I appreciate it. I appreciate you making the time to come out here. I think my small joy of the day is I woke up early. I've been waking up extra early. I actually slept in a little bit, but that got me up at like 7, which is later than
hmm
normal. Um so I sat down and I made one of the badges. So for
You did?
context, yeah, for context for the audience, we Steven and I, we did a big Pokemon competition last night with us and like 4 other people. A big race, sort of Iron Man competition who can like last the longest, and the winner, as well as like people who did various things, get awarded what I'm calling badges for them. And I actually made yours this morning for the most starter deaths. And it's like a cute little skull and crossbones little red badge. It's like slightly bigger than a quarter. I'm hoping that it like
Uh-huh.
bakes well and hardens well, because it'll be
Mm.
just really neat. Like when I was done, I was like, this is kind of cool. This is kind of cool. Um, so I found a lot of
That's so
joy in that
funny.
today. Yeah.
So funny you made that. Was I the only one who went to all the starters?
Yes. You may that's why you get a badge for it. You may had the opportunity to basically, if she would have wiped, she would have hit her third starter, and then it would have no longer been a badge because like multiple people would have done this thing. But Nope, since she ended up winning, you, got the
That
badge
badge
for
feels
it. Well, you got a badge
that
for it.
yeah, that badge feels like when you were playing Mario Party and you're the one behind, like the most one behind, they give you a star. That's how it
That's how
feels.
it feels. That's funny. Uh, but it's a cool badge, and you'll have, like, a little token if,
All right.
yeah, 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 it's nice. Um, Sweet. Yeah, yeah. Joys of the day out of the way, what in life
Mhm.
brings you pure joy?
There's a lot of things, but usually gaming is what brings me joy.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and you mentioned kind of in your intro that that is centered around, RPGs, role-playing games.
Yep.
Yeah, where did that begin for you? Has that always been your, like, focal point in your video games?
Yeah. I was. It was around. Don't remember. I was either in kindergarten or first grade. I got my transparent. I think it was purple Game Boy
Mhm.
color. You remember that one?
I do remember the transparent
And
purple.
you know, going back to the topic of Pokemon, my first game with that Game Boy was Red. So that's where everything started. Obviously, I had no idea where to go. Obviously, I did not know how to read English that well at 5 or 6 year old.
Mhm.
So I was just going with the flow.
Yeah, yeah, it is a that would actually be probably be my first, like, foray into the role-playing game as well.
Hmm.
I might have I don't remember which came first for me, it was either, Paper Mario for the Nintendo,
Hmm.
or, the Game Boy Color Pokemon Yellow. I got the whole little
Hmm.
bundle, the yellow Pikachu special edition with
Ah,
the yellow, edition, and that was my Game Boy Color until things got upgraded. Um, yeah, yeah,
ah,
first generation Pokemon hooked, I feel like a lot of people I know into the role-playing
mhm.
game, sector of video games.
Yeah, and I also got my brother hooked on Pokemon too. So when eventually it was his birthday, my grandma got him Pokemon Yellow with a yellow Game Boy.
Oh,
Ironic.
nice. Okay. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
I understand those feels, the yellow Game Boy. Man, those were so bulky, and they only got so much smaller over the years, right? Like, even the Advance, I feel
Hmm.
like, was bulky. It was just the color turned sideways.
Yeah, I didn't have that one. I had the other one, the SP one,
You went to the
the one that
SP
came.
next?
Yeah, my father gave it to me because when they came back to this is a little skip. They came back to Puerto Rico in 2004. He gave me my little brother, the one that passed away. He had a Game Boy SP, and I was like, I want this, I want one, and he gave it to me on Christmas. And again, my first game with that Game Boy what's it? Yeah, Advanced SP was Fire Red. My grandma gave me that game, so I got the same game a few years later,
Yeah,
but upgraded.
when my Game Boy Advance had died off, when the SP was beginning to come out, and my mom I still had the Game Boy Color, so, like, Game Boy games still worked, but my mom gave me we have this, like, our family, tradition is to open a present on Christmas Eve, and then, the rest of your
Okay.
presents on Christmas, just for, like, a
Hmm.
little teaser of what's to come. But one year, my mom memed me very, very hard, and that was by giving me the Game Boy Advance game, um, the night before and the Game Boy SP the day of. So it was like, "Ah, I know what this is, and I know what's coming, but I can't do
Yeah,
anything with it."
yeah. It happened to me a lot with my grandma, because my grandma didn't know that we had a PS1, and she kept buying us PS2 games, so she had to return them each time she did that.
Did you ever end up getting the PS2?
Yeah, a few years later, like around almost I think a year before the PS3 came out.
Okay, okay, okay.
I came in pretty late on that second generation.
The PS2, I mean, that's a fine generation to come in late on because that's the PS2 and the Xbox generation. That is like,
Hmm.
vying for the top generation of gaming, I feel. Um,
No,
were there any like big RPGs you played on the PS2 when you went in that direction?
yeah, a ton. Kingdom Hearts,
Ooh,
Final
Kingdom Hearts
Fantasy
is good.
X, Uh, oh my god, there's a ton that I played.
What's
Can't get
your
back.
what's your favorite like group of art what do you call them, like family of RPGs? Be that Final Fantasy, be that like Fire Emblem, be that like which one's your do you think your favorite is?
Final Fantasy. And speaking of Fire Emblem, I have this one here.
Oh, I pulled it all out of the hat.
Yeah, I was like, I'm playing it. Well, I'm not gonna play it right now. It's still, I bought it when Hogwarts came out, and
Mm.
that same week, it's still sealed.
Mhm. 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 Got to get
The
to that
life of
soon.
adult.
I
Yeah,
went
because sorry for that. I'm
yeah.
currently playing Triangle Strategy right now, and I'm at the final chapter.
Okay.
And if you're familiar with games like Fire Emblem and Triangle Strategy, they're both the same tactical RPGs. I'm currently on a stage where I have to carry on follow some NPC to a certain goal so they can be safe,
Okay.
and they are getting killed every single time. And the requirement for failing is either losing the whole party or having one of those three NPC kills. So my party is all right, but the NPC are getting killed. So I'm starting all over and over
Mm.
again, and I'm pissed. You know that you can spend in one single stage Fire Emblem, or in this case Triangle Strategy, you can be an hour just trying to, I play it on the defensive, because if I try to attack, the whole NPC are gonna gank up at me. I don't like that.
Mhm.
So I either me approaching the NPC, I let them approach me.
Yeah, the tactical RPGs, my brain
Hmm.
does not work very well for them. I feel like I am not the most tactical. I am on the offense in a lot of those kinds of games, and that doesn't like super
Mm,
work out very well.
yeah.
After our competition last night, I raided out to a streamer named Noctis Nexus who was playing Fire Emblem,
Hmm.
and she said that what she was doing this night was training up her lower end units because yesterday she spent 6 hours on one mission only to fail it. And
Shit.
she was like, I need like I my level like my there's a level disparity here, and I need to get the lower end up to the higher end so that they can take on the whole level faster than 6.5 hours or whatever. And I was like, that's some commitment. That's a pause and save for me.
Yeah.
We'll be
Yeah,
back.
because on those games you level up very slow. Either you have to have your unit attack, or you know let it be attacked so it can level up. If you don't do nothing with that unit, it won't level up. Nope.
Mm,
Yeah, you have
okay.
to.
So you
That
just
unit needs
it's
to.
about like then now you have to spend 6.5 hours using the unit only to go back to the mission. That makes sense. That makes
I'm not
sense.
looking for. Yeah, not looking for whatever mission she was like, or he yesterday. So.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She was doing I don't know, it seems pretty late game, but I've never actually played a Fire Emblem. I'm just like really aware of the series. Um but
Mhm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, what is it about RPGs that keeps you? Like what is your favorite thing about this type of
Well,
game?
I get transported to those type of games. Usually, especially on games that allow you to make your own character. So it's usually you on the story. So I am a person that has like very high imagination on everything. So games like currently Hogwarts, I am very invested into the game. I have like 30 something hours, and I'm still like in the beginning stages of the story. I haven't done much on that game because I'm all over the world exploring, finding stuff, secrets. Obviously, some secrets are locked behind a story, so I have to do the story.
Sure.
And yeah, that's usually what gets me hooked, because I get transported. Hence the word role playing. I'm the one, I'm the character, regardless if the character talks or already if the character already has a name
Mhm.
and our voice. That's essentially the player, because it's you driving the story, not the character. You know.
Right, right. It's interesting when games can actually grasp that feeling cuz like it
Mhm.
in I don't know, like all of the NPCs will always respond the same to you no matter who you are, but it's more about how
Mhm.
you take that and like what choices you make beyond that. Like games like, Skyrim and Elden Ring are great examples in where
Hmm.
you can just be hyper creative with how you look, what you're doing. You'll
Yeah.
still get the same story, but especially as like a streamer or as like a person who is entertaining while you're playing, that can be so much. You can be, haughty towards this person. You can be, you know, mean and aggressive because they said one wrong thing to spite you, but you still have to click agree in the fucking
Yeah.
dialogue. But you can
Yeah.
play around with the way that feels to play it.
Yeah, it happened to me with The Witcher. I was a total asshole at the beginning. You know that I used to have no. I every NPC wanted like to fight me, and I was trying to make an excuse and fight them as well. Like my first half on my first playthrough on The Witcher, I was looking for every excuse to either kill them or fight them. So it wasn't until like the later half, like the other half of the game, that I decided to be good, but it was already too late. I think that game has three or four endings. I don't remember, and I got the worst one. Everybody died.
So are already too late because the game began to respond to how you were playing.
Yeah, because I was a total asshole for like the first half of the game. There's a side quest on the Witcher that there's like a demon trapped inside a tree.
Okay.
Don't know if you have you played Witcher or
I've seen some people play
no.
Witcher, but I haven't consumed enough of the storyline to know exactly
Okay,
what.
so there is a certain part in the game. I don't remember if it's a side quest or if it's part of the story, but it still influence on the decisions you make on the world. There is a tree that is, being possessed by a demon. The demon requests you to release them. It gives you like very dark stuff. You need to have like a black horse. I don't remember. I think blood of a certain monster or something, and do
Collection
a
quest.
ritual. Yeah, pretty dark stuff. And at the end, you either I don't remember if it's at the end or in the beginning of the quest, but you have multiple choices. You either agree to release the demon or kill it. So my first playthrough, I released that demon into a freaking horse. So I made a freaking demon horse. Yep.
In what ways does that begin to affect the does that begin to affect like your general person around you? Do they begin to respond to you differently, react to you differently in the world as you begin cuz as you're murdering people, you're pushing towards
Mhm.
this like worst ending, quote unquote. But does the world respond to you as it's going down that path? Do people "Oh, it's that witcher that murders people."
Yeah, I think I haven't played the game like in 5 7 years, but I don't remember quite well they reacting to how good or evil I was. Mostly all of those results you see it at the end. Like
Okay,
the game gives you like a slideshow of everything that every single story that you did. There's like the bloody baron. I managed to save that guy, but my friends, because he let me before the result of my friends, that guy lost his family because he was drunk. He was very aggressive, very abusive, and I managed to rescue his family. They were all together again, but if you don't rescue his family, he's gonna commit suicide, and usually that is not the good ending of that story arc.
doesn't sound like it.
Yeah, and also Geralt is not the type of Witcher to be with one woman. Obviously, on the books, canonly he has multiple women, but the one he loves is Jennifer,
Yeah,
the, the
right.
the one with the black hair. Usually he loves her because of I don't remember if it's a curse or something. There's a djinn, and that djinn makes them fall in love with each other like more than usual. So um, if I remember correctly, from the books and the first season of The Witcher on Netflix, their feelings are like not genuine, just like that freaking djinn um curse them with that feeling.
Mm.
Obviously, Jennifer is trying to push back because she knows that feeling is not genuine. It's just a curse, a witch. The That chapter on the story and in the game is called The Last Wish.
Oh, I do remember that in the season how they began to also like drift apart too after she was what became nervous that she loved him just because of the magic and not because
Yeah, because of
yes.
the magic.
Yeah, right, right. Hey, give me just 1 second. We'll return to this conversation in just a second. I'm hearing some noise upstairs and I want to make sure that it's not what I think it is.
The dog again.
So give me just a moment. Okay. Okay, all's well. Okay, so some of the choices that you're making are weighing in between sort of in the game staying loyal to this like Jennifer line, or does it affect that
Mm,
excuse me, does it
no,
affect that storyline if you as Geralt are sleeping with, different women throughout the game
yeah, the game makes you choose between two, either Jennifer or Tres or both.
or both? So there is a way to do a both path there.
Yeah, but that choosing both will end up bad.
Okay, 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 okay. So like you have to weigh out all your decisions here.
Yeah, usually I had an affair with like I believe like three of them. I don't remember. There's one that's blonde. He's at the beginning of the story, and she helps you find something on an island.
Mhm.
And after they had their thing, she ow, I heard that.
Oh yeah, sorry.
They had a thing, and there's like a certain item they're looking for.
Mhm.
And then at the end, when you kill the monster and have a dialogue with her, you either fight her to get the item, or just let her go. Obviously, the first time I wasn't paying attention. I was like, what am I supposed to choose? And the option that I choose after I had, you know, the thing with her, I kill her. I was like, whoops.
Whoop.
I and with Jennifer, had that thing again, and with Triss. And then there's like on the quest on the last witch, either you choose to stay with Jennifer
Mhm.
or no. Obviously, I chose no because I wanted to be with
You had
Triss
all
and
these
Triss.
side things going on.
Yeah, how the sightings going on, and I choose to be with Triss. She's a redhead, so at the time I was into redhead, so I'm like, well,
This
I'm
makes
staying
sense
with her.
for me.
Yeah, and obviously, uh, forwarding to Triss, either you let her go, convince her to stay, or I don't remember the third option, but I obviously convinced Triss to stay and leave whatever thing she was doing behind, and so
Mhm.
she ended up with Geralt. But again, fast forward to my ending, it was pointless because everybody died.
Everybody died because of the decisions that you had made along the way.
Yeah,
But that's still the
I did.
joy of role-playing games is that the
Mhm.
decisions and especially, like, the better made actual, like, decisions matter games, they do just that, they matter, and I always get kinda nervous when I'm playing them because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, no. Was that
Mm.
the right decision? I need save files. Like, what if it wasn't? What if I want the other outcome?"
Mm, Speaking of that, triangle strategy is a game whether it's not you making the choices, it's you trying to convince your party to make the right choice. Right now, on the point I am in the story, since it's still fresh and is what I kind of remember the most, the story branched on three paths. One of the paths was, let me give you a summary. Elfrost is a kingdom right on the north of Glenbrook, and Hyacinth is the one on the desert, it's like on the southeast of the country. And the story doesn't have like magic or stuff, it's just like a fight for resources. You know that in those times, they fight for salt.
Okay.
Uh, so it was a fight over salt, and Hyacinth is the one with the monopoly. They're the ones that distributing the salt everywhere. there's a point in the game where there's a mine, and the mine is shared between the three countries. And El Elfrost is the one that discovered another source of salt in the cave. So they killed the one that discovered the salt, and that was started the whole war. So um, Elfrost invades Glenbrook, and happens, they dethrone the king, they kill the king and all of the royal family, except for one that is currently in my party.
Mm.
So um, Elfrost is the, let's say, the bad guy of all the three, but Hyacinth is the one with the religious stuff. There's some games that have like religious stuff, but end up being the bad one, the most evil one, because
Yeah.
they have this way of living, the goddess stuff, and yada yada yada.
And they won't give up on
So
it no matter who it hurts. Yeah.
mhm, yeah, so there's a point in the story where we rescue Glenbrook from Elfrost and we kick them out of the country. But before kicking them out of the country, well, there were like some choices that I don't remember. But my party, I tried to convince the party to, do it another way. And what they ended up picking was destroying a dam and flooding the city. Oh, there was like another choice that
So they
I
made a
now,
wild decision off of what you were
yeah,
pushing for. That's interesting.
yeah, because another choice was destroy the bridge and leave every single invader inside the royal castle. And the other one I don't. Oh, the other one was okay. We have the first one that is destroying the dam and flooding the city and making them escape, and whoever survived kill them. The second was destroying the bridge and leave everyone inside the royal castle. And the third one was stealth. I was pushing to be stealthy and killing only the important people.
Mhm.
But they decided to, you know,
They
destroy the
switched
dam and
up
flood a
on
whole
your
city. And
yeah.
yeah.
That's interesting. It lends to, I would say, a more realistic situation in which you don't
Hmm.
actually have full control. Like you can kind of
Yeah.
try to steer as much as you could if you were there, but like ultimately what happens isn't directly in your hands almost ever. Like it, most of the time you can make a decision like this event will come out this way if I do X, Y, and
Yeah.
Z, but like you never really know what's going to happen. And that's very fun to actually put that, while it might be disheartening for a moment because you didn't quite get the thing you were pushing for.
Yeah.
It's like
eh,
unique, I would say, to like make a
yeah.
decision that isn't, in a
Hmm.
game like this that
Hmm.
isn't listened to, but it still
Yeah.
probably has weight that you chose, that you wanted to do this. The
Yeah.
characters'
And
relationships may change.
yeah, and right now, the point of the story I'm at, obviously. Oh, and the decisions, how they make the decisions, the decisions is they have a scale, and whoever puts the coin on each, there are like 7, 10 people, I don't remember, that make a decision
Oh, they
with a
all like
coin.
vote.
Yeah, they vote, and depending where the scales go, the one that weighs the more is the path that we choose.
Interesting.
And in that point of the story, and where I'm trying to get right now, the scale has three things like to weigh
Yeah.
the thing. And right now in the story that I'm at, oh, to give you a little more background on Hayasan, they have slaves to mine salt.
Okay.
So, and those slaves are, um they kind of fool them that their ancestor made like some sin or something they have to atone for the rest of their life until they decide that they finally atone. And so there's like a bomb, like the bomb that we used to destroy the dam is a pretty big one. You can say like a nuke, like a mini nuke. And that bomb is made out of dead people. That I discovered yesterday. That bomb is,
Mm. So in
is
order
made
to
of dead
make it
people.
again, there are sacrifices.
Yeah. So where the story branched yesterday, because I was playing that yesterday, it was either ally with the kingdom that invade my country and, try and kill the religious ones, or ally with the religious ones to kill the evil kingdom, or a third path, save the slaves and try and go and find their promised land. And I chose, luckily, the scales when the characters they all went together and choose. There was a tie, and it's the first tie I ever got in the game. So since there was no conclusion, I was the one that finally got to decide
Mm,
something on the game. So I chose to, go to that other path. Obviously, the kingdom where the characters are is gonna be abandoned. They're gonna leave them behind and leave them with no king. So it's their choice what to do with the country and then with the salt.
mhm.
So that's where I'm at. Currently, I am at a bridge, trying to save the people that I told you before. Before the podcast started, and I've been failing that ever since. Like, if we count the hours I spent yesterday with the hours I spent today, I think I'm almost 4 hours into that freaking stage, and the NPCs are dying
Mm. So
because the
it's
requirement for those who are currently watching, one of the requirement for losing is either the whole party getting killed or the NPCs that I'm trying to save get killed. So
mm.
it's
So
kind of hard.
you're stuck up on a hard mission, but it
Yeah.
doesn't, that's I mean, there's always like challenges in these games where it even doesn't come down to the role playing, but it is also just sometimes a tough game, which is good as well.
Hmm.
The so a lot of the senses of like escapism into probably a high fantasy world,
Hmm.
getting into, some magic things that we can't quite experience in our own day-to-day
Yeah.
lives. Have you ever tried any like tabletop role-playing games?
Like D&D.
Yeah, like D&D. That's yeah, that's the easiest one to connect to usually.
No, I kind of prefer watching others like you when you do it, and when my brother used to do it when his friends. But I think for me, I don't know, it's not my thing unless for what for real life, role playing. I don't know. Probably I don't know
You
it's
I mean,
because
you
of the
like
age.
seeing it. You like seeing visually these big fanciful
Yeah,
worlds.
I believe in the stage you have like what is it called? I've seen it on movies and stuff that people do like real life role playing. Don't know how it's called. I know there's a name to it.
Like
I
uh
know there's a name. Let me search for it.
actual play? Is that
Yeah.
like what we do on our other podcast where we play live or we play it and
No, there's a. I saw it on Hawkeye, the series on Disney, that they have like a certain spot on a city, like a, let's say like a forest, and in that forest they do role playing, like kind of stuff. Like you have a role, you're a general,
oh,
the other one's like
LARPing?
a band. That LARP.
Yo, okay. Is that something that you're interested in doing or something that you're not interested in?
I don't know. There's nothing over here that has LARP, but at least it seemed interesting when I watched it. But I don't know.
Yeah,
Probably
I
give it a try.
actually took part in that when I was in high school. I went to a group like once every other week or so for quite a while. That was I mean it's a blast. It's a blast cuz it's a, role-playing game. Me and my friend made characters that we would be when we went. We like created a little culture for them so that we had like weight to our choices. Um where we played, there wasn't like a world, so we weren't like fitting in with like they weren't like, all right, we're part of this town, and now what do you do in this town? It's just like we came together and fought with foam weapons, so you get a little bit of like physical interaction and what's that exercise, and
Hmm.
then a little bit of role playing there with fun foam weapons.
Yeah,
Yeah. That is a fun time. Do you think you'd be more interested in trying a live action like a LARP rather than playing a tabletop role playing game?
probably.
Yeah. Yeah, does the physical element give you that added bonus there? Or are you interested would you be more interested in finding one that is like a full sort of experience, almost like a Renaissance fair?
Yeah, you can say that.
Yeah. I didn't never get to go to the big fair ones. I just always, the practices or whatever. Um
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said that some of your favorites are what makes Final Fantasy your favorite like role playing
The
um
world,
the world?
the world, the art, the music, the characters. I can go on and on. Usually, what my first Final Fantasy game was Final Fantasy VII on the PlayStation 1.
Hmm.
Obviously, I got it like 7 years after it came out. I think that game came out in '97. I got it in 2004. My first Final Fantasy game, and I usually love the world. Like I think it's like how do you say it? It's pretty advanced as well, like the technology and everything on that game. And also, a little side note: Final Fantasy VII is the one that revolutionized what RPGs are technically today, because you wouldn't imagine a game looking that good on that time with cutscene and everything. You know,
Hmm.
Final Fantasy VII changed the whole landscape of what RPGs are mostly today. Obviously, the system, the music, all that complexity with the materia, building your character. I love that, about that game. Usually, and also I don't give a crap about the main character. Right? My favorite characters are either is the antagonist of the game, Sephiroth. Hence my profile picture on Twitch. That is a mixture of him with another anime character. But Sephiroth is my favorite character. Usually, at least at that point in time, reflect reflecting on what Sephiroth was in that first game, and his motives and everything was like, it wasn't that wow. He just went crazy because he discovered his origins, who he was. But now on the remake, he is a future self, a future Sephiroth that came, from the future and is trying to change everything. Because in case you all don't know, Final Fantasy VII Remake is a sequel. I know the remake part is kind of confusing, but I don't know why Square Enix did it that way. But Final Fantasy VII Remake is a sequel,
To the
and
first
you
Final
can
Fantasy 7?
and you can say that the first Final Fantasy VII is just a bad ending.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's the one with 4 discs, right? 3 discs?
three.
3 discs. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
long one.
it came out with three. Usually, my favorite summon there is Bahamut, the dragon.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm mostly into dragons and stuff, so hence that being my favorite summon. And Sephiroth's theme song, at least the one from the movie, is awesome. I love that take that they took with that. How do you call that genre? I don't know. Opera, Latin. No, they're speaking Latin, but the whole thing, the whole song they put into metal, and I love that. And
Hmm.
you should, if you haven't played the remake or heard his song, they went above and beyond with his theme song. Like you think that it's about to end, but no, it's hyping the other face of the song. I think that song has like four faces, and it's
So
pretty awesome.
almost like a boss fight, how like when you get a boss to a certain point, it progresses
Yeah,
to a second phase. The music
yeah, it
heightens with
progresses.
it, and they were able to like really
Yeah,
capture that in this movie.
yeah. For those who play the original thing, oh, it's about to end. No, it's hyping the other stage of the fight, and it's going on, and it's making it awesome. The original artists went above and beyond with the remake. But yeah, usually, Final Fantasy VII was my first, of the franchise. Is one of my favorites. I know I haven't beaten it on the original one, but I know the game from the back, like the back of my hand, because I played it so many times up until the end. Because you can fight Sephiroth. I think you arrive like in 20 something hours on level 40 something, but that is not enough for to beat that game. Because if you all know, on our classic RPGs, a boss has like 3 or 4 stages. So, and going to Sephiroth, I think you need to fight like Genova, his mother, and another monster, which I don't currently remember the name right now. But you have like two boss fights before going to the final one, and there is no save point. So if you die, you need
Yeah.
to start from the beginning.
That is a common thread in Final Fantasy games. I started playing from the
Yeah,
beginning of Final Fantasies, and I never feel cool moving on until I beat it. Although I will be doing this on number 3. I beat 1 and 2.
yeah,
2 was much harder than 1, and then 3 has gotten increasingly harder,
Yeah.
and the last boss is like one of the most absurd things. You have to go through a 45-minute dungeon. The last save point is outside the dungeon, so you have to go through the dungeon every time. About 45 minutes, because when you get through the dungeon, you've
Damn.
leveled up so many times that like now if you were to do it, you could sweep it a little quicker, but you have to resave and go back again. Like, so you get through the dungeon in 45 minutes, you fight a boss that is supposed to kill you and weaken you. That sucks. So then you lose, and then you end up in the Dark Realm, which you can't save in, and you have to beat 4 bosses before you take on the last boss. And like, I what what what? And I like looked up, I was like, there has to be a glitch someone's figured out just to save. Like all I want to do is save.
Mhm.
And reading online, like that was even the game designer's like least favorite part, is that there is like an hour and a half of play in which you cannot save, and if you fail you have to redo, and it's the last
What Final
hour and a
Fantasy
half.
that one again?
Final Fantasy 3, it's the last castle, is like the worst Final Fantasy dungeon in most of the Final Fantasies.
Nope, I'm not looking forward to that.
It
I've been in one. For me, one was too easy. Obviously, as a kid, I didn't comprehend that game well, but I played it again like 2 years ago, and that game's way too
They get
easy.
increasingly harder.
The fights were super short. I don't know if because I'm used to the RPGs today that the boss fight have like a chunk of health, a huge chunk of health, and at that time you can beat a boss in like a few minutes if you know what you're doing. Of course, if you didn't know what you're doing, then it's gonna be hard. But I think that the only fight that gave me trouble was the one with Chaos because he had a ton of health and all the things he did. And also going back to the like hard bosses on those games, I didn't beat Final Fantasy VIII because Ultimisia spams Milestorm, and if you know what that does, it gives you every stat effect that exists on the freaking game. So she did that faster than I could heal. So and I also made a mistake on that game because that I learned that in that game the boss scales to your level. So I found a land where to level up, and I level up to 100. So when I learned that that was a mistake, like, well, I can't beat it, and I won't be starting this again. And in that game, there's a secret part where you get Bahamut, but you need to fight a certain like a round of dragons up to him. And there is this one dragon that I don't remember the attack, but it's like a meteor. I think it's comet or something, and that attack one shot you, and he only does that when you are in a higher level. I'm like, well, I screwed myself.
Yeah, out of every path, by over grinding. I feel like that's probably something and they
Yeah.
started adding in because of the first few games. Like in 3, you have to spend several hours just walking back and forth and fighting enemies, because otherwise your level will not be high enough. No matter what you think when you enter the last dungeon, you need to spend 2 more hours. It is
Mm,
absurd. Like there's the large chunk of the middles of these games. Like the beginning, you feel a little weak. The middle, you
yeah.
feel overpowered. You're like, every enemy is easy except for the bosses, whom I still can beat with a little bit of finesse. And then you
Yeah.
get into the final dungeon, and the Final Fantasy games are really good at just like turning that right around and being like, nuh-uh, you're not even close to prepared. And there's nothing
Yeah.
to prepare you for how powerful this is. You just have
Yeah.
to spend the time.
Yeah. And I learned that Ultimecia has like 3 or 4 phases. I'm like, okay, if I couldn't beat her first stage because it was freaking annoying, I won't be able to beat the other ones. Like, hell no.
Level
Thank you
100,
for
4 phases. Too late.
yeah. Usually, if any of you are gonna play in the future, try not to level up, because you can be overpowered,
Beat her as low
but
level as you can.
yeah, be
Please.
yeah, because I don't know if there's a thing that prevents you to level up or something, but you can be have your weapons, have your magic, and everything that makes you powerful, but leveling up is kind of pointless on that game. Usually, also on that game, how the magic works is kind of weird because you need to draw it from an enemy. So you need to draw like a specific enemy if you want a certain type of magic.
Hmm.
And yeah,
I see. Okay, yeah. So it's
yeah,
very specific in your grinding.
Yeah, the at least Final Fantasy 8 of all that I played before, I think the gameplay is the one that I like the least because of the draw system and how everything works.
Yeah, I mean
But yeah,
that's the did you say number 4 has the draw system?
no, 8.
Number 8 has the draw system. Yeah, that Final Fantasy is such a wide set of games. Like you have the main series, which is generally like a team of 4 to 5, maybe 6 that run together. The decisions are made by you, but not really. It's like cuz it's a JRPG, they're a lot more
Hmm.
methodical. Like you go from point A to point B. It's not really your decision on what's going to
Yeah.
happen. There is a story they are telling, but you are just embodying these characters for the journey.
Hmm.
And that's okay because like they tell a kick-ass story.
Yeah.
And this is just a cool thing to be a part of while you're playing it. But they're they're vast, they're wide. Like the main story games, you go straight forward through a story, and then there's, Final Fantasy, there's some like GameCube ones where it's like very different play style. You're not like moving
Yeah.
around on a map anymore. You're going from stage to stage, beating X
Yeah.
amount of enemies.
Yeah, I played one on the DS, and that game is pretty sad because I don't remember the name. I think it was Final Fantasy Crystal something.
Crystal Chronicles?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about where there's different stages. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I don't know if it's the same. I think that's a different Final Fantasy Chronicles. But the
Okay.
one that I played, the story was about two kids. They were orphans. When obviously they're still kids at the end. But they were like two orphans that lost their father. And I don't remember the game quite well, but I believe the main character loses his siblings as well, and that story is pretty sad.
Mm.
And that's all that I can tell you. That story is, of all the Final Fantasies that I played, that is one of the saddest.
So they range as well in like what kind of emotions that they attempt to give out.
Hmm.
And you're just sort of there picking them all up.
Yeah.
Are there any other, there's a word for these like groups of games, families of games. But are there any other um franchises, I guess, of games that like get you as going as Final Fantasy?
There's a ton, but the one that is in my mind right now is actually Megami Tensei series. Also Persona. The
Persona,
Persona
yeah.
franchise. Yeah, Persona 5, yeah, that's a game that will get you into into the world so bad because it's like you're playing a freaking anime. Obviously, the choices that you make count. The friendships and the relationship that you make count. So there's like multiple endings. I play that game with a guide because if you want to do it like everything like right, you need to play that game with a guide because there's a ton of things to do like social stuff, again building relationship. You can have also a girlfriend on the game and I ended up with a, I don't know if you can, yeah, the kid was in high school, but the one that I ended up with, it was the kid's doctor. I don't know how old she is, but either she's like 30 or
Too
40 something.
old. Too old. Too
And
old.
I ended up with her.
Yeah, the Persona's a very interesting
Yeah.
game because it
Yeah.
does very much follow the structure of a JRPG, which,
Yeah.
just in case, is a Japanese role-playing game that, like we said with Final Fantasy, generally tend to stick to these
Mhm.
sort of story point by story point where you can't actually make a ton of decisions. You
Yeah.
kind of can, but the branching paths aren't wide because they're trying to tell a story. But here,
Mhm.
it's very interesting because they have story beat that you take care of, and then you go back to
Mhm.
town, and it's just like a few days or a week in town of whatever
Mhm.
you want to do, talking to your various party members, trying to progress their stories, and meeting new
Mhm.
people in the town. What can I do? What can I make? What can I
Yeah.
find?
Yeah,
Um,
and the more you progress with their relationship, the stronger their, at least your party members, the stronger their personas will be because their personas transform when you reach that maximum level on their relationship. So that's one of the good things as well. And and with other people as well because if there's like I think they use like a certain style, I don't know, it's a zodiacs or something like Hierophant, Fear or something. Don't remember that much about that game, but they use like certain stuff like cards to let you know what path you're choosing and what are you leveling up.
Hmm.
And that's what I love about at least my only Persona game that I play is Persona 5. So that's the only exposure I've gotten to the Persona franchise. But recently I played Shin Megami Tensei 5 on Switch, and that game has a huge difficulty spike. Like for example, you start obviously level 1, but the boss is level 15, and in those games you level up super slow, like super slow. You have no idea, and if you think you're strong enough on the first part of the game, bull crap.
You're not.
Once you go to the other stage, like the enemy will be like 20 levels higher.
Yeah, I played 4, I think, and I mean, it's much the same that, like, no matter what you felt about the last mission, the next mission is gonna beat you up, and you're gonna have to spend
Yeah.
some time learning, and, like, it's all about the
Hmm.
hyper strategy of, like, what moves they have that you know they have, and when you can, like, stun
Yeah.
lock them or keep them held down because they're about to use X move, like,
Hmm.
it's
Yeah.
very interesting, the in and outs. It's like a boxing
Yeah.
match with between the
Yeah,
enemies.
and it's good because also the Legend Megami Tensei 5, I don't know if it was in the previous game, but your character you can control and switch what their weaknesses are and what they can be strong against. My character was strong against almost everything except for light magic, and if you know that light and dark they usually one shot you. So my only weakness was the thing that always one-shotted me, and I unlocked a few skills. One was an item that if your HP reached 0, then it revived you. And there was another skill that if your HP reached 1 or something that almost killed you, it gave you back your full health. So my character was like
3
on the
health
final
bars,
boss.
basically.
Yeah, in the final boss, like I think it was Samael or Satan or whatever variation of him was on the game. He killed me 3 times, and I was like, "Are you serious? It's not enough having my backups, and you kill them, and
Actually
it's
did do it.
yeah,
You had 3 backup health bars, 2
yeah,
backup health bars, and he was like, "Nope, nope, nope."
yeah." And I was I think I was resistant to physical damage, so I think it was half. So my character was like, at least resisting wise, it was okay, except if the character, the enemy use um light magic. So it
Yeah,
was kind
right.
of yeah, and that game was like I think I beat it in 80 something hours, and at
It's a long
least in
game.
that game, choices don't matter up until the end. That it branches on 3 paths. Either you choose to serve your current god,
It gets so
um,
intense from being a high schooler to, like, dealing with the
yeah, with
ether.
demons and gods and shit. So in the first one of the choices are continue with your current god and continue with your current beliefs, or side against him and destroy every single god and only leave the world to humans. And the other one was take that power and give it to someone else so you can make your own world. I'm like, shit.
So many options, and they're all pretty decent, like, the especially
Yeah.
with how the game has gone, like, that could mean a lot for this final cutscene. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
Oh, and one last thing before we touch on our subject. And if you don't agree with the other two, because it's the one that want to destroy the humans, I mean all the gods is like a party of two, like Nuwa and a human.
mhm.
And then there's me with the Japanese branch. No, no, I'm not with anybody. I'm either one of the three. It was the Japanese branch where the character was, or the one that wants to be with the current god. And if you side with one of them, you have to kill the other two.
So it's like a huge weighty decision on what's going on, and based on the
Yeah.
relationships you've been developing through this, is probably gonna very heavily weigh on which one you choose, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So, is there anything about is there anything about this subject that we haven't touched on? Role-playing games, the type of games you like to play, why you do it that we haven't talked about that comes to mind when thinking about the subject?
Why? I think I don't know if I told you, but it's just in case I didn't, because you get transported to that world of fantasy, and I love fantasy, anything that has to do with fantasy. And when I was in college, the professor asked me what was my favorite genre, and amongst all the ones that she said, I said fantasy, and she gave me a book, and the book had to do with magic and a lot of stuff that I really like. So usually because I have a very high imagination, always have, and I like to be transported into that world. And it's mostly the games like Elden Ring, Hogwarts, Code Vein, that those games allow you to create your own character. The ones that get me the most.
Yeah, yeah, where you actually get to feel like you're being a part
Hmm.
of this world by developing even just the way that your face and body are shaped, and
Yeah.
then developing the skill trees that you're interested in, not just saying like, oh, the next skill I did unlock is specifically this thing, so I gotta stick to the sword or whatever. Code Vein is very
Hmm.
interesting because there's a huge array of like
I
classes that you pick up for playing in certain ways.
I spent like around an hour or something on that game and to just creating the character, and that was on the demo. When the game came out, I didn't have to go through that again. I just transferred my create a character. And this, it doesn't have to do with RPGs, but the game has somewhat of RPG elements, and it is a wrestling game, WWE 2K22. I spent
Yeah.
around 6 hours creating that character. Like the first hour was just creating the character itself, and the rest was doing the entrance and customizing the moves that I want to do, because that game gives you a ton of options of what moves you want to execute and how your character fights.
So yeah, so it goes beyond just the fantasy role playing games too. It's just really any time that it seems to be mostly centered around just escapism, right? Escaping into the wrestling world, escaping into this war of
Yeah.
salt, like wherever you're going, just a new world where I can imagine a different space around me or space that I'm dealing
Hmm.
with, problems that I couldn't deal
Yeah.
with in my daily life that this may allow me to be introduced to. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I think that we're coming to a point where we're going to be wrapping up here. Why don't you summarize for us, just sort of this topic at hand? Role playing games, what they mean to you, where people outside of this could find joy.
Wow. Obviously, we're all different, so it depends on what
Well, sure.
brings everybody, joy. At least for me, again, in this type of genre, since I am a person that has a lot of imagination, I love the story, I love the world. Final Fantasy, in this case, like I told you before, it's Final Fantasy 7 to be exact. Is a game that revolutionized what RPGs are currently, today. The graphics and everything at that time were amazing. And what I love about that game as well is the music. I can hear Sephiroth's theme song over and over again, and I'm not gonna get tired. Also, the battle theme when you're fighting a boss, that is amazing. Usually, when people ask me what I love about Final Fantasy, I usually go like summarizes the world, the art, and the music, and obviously the characters and the stories.
Everything.
And yeah, everything. Yeah, everything about those games. Obviously, Pokemon. I love that game as well. Usually, again, it's my first taste on RPGs on in my first game as well that I practically own myself without having to borrow it from my cousin or someone. But again, RPG games are great. If you want, to escape and try to make your decisions matter. I know there are other type of games that does this type of stuff, but RPGs are the one that give you, like the taste of your choices that really matter, if you can say it like that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that is definitely the biggest, I would say, bonus of these games is that you're not
Hmm.
just playing a game, which I mean that not to diminuate games that are not RPGs, games where you're not role playing, but you're
Mm,
not like yeah, you're not just going along this predetermined path and like only getting the things handed to you all the time. It's that when you make a
mm,
choice, it affects the next thing that could occur or a thing down the line that could occur.
Yeah.
And yeah. Yeah. Um Sweet. Yeah. Well, I think that probably covers our interview for the day, but we are gonna do some close up stuff. Do you have anything you want to tell us about in terms of like you streaming soon? Any events coming up for you, or do you just want to remind us of where to find you?
Yeah, so I'm about probably well, I'm streaming today since I'm not tired. I'm gonna stream in about maybe 2 hours from now. Gonna go on Twitch on Twitch TV/St. Kaiser. You can find me over there on Twitter and almost every single social platform you can find me as St. Kaiser. And again, I stream from I'm trying to stream from Monday to Thursday from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. Atlantic time. Usually, if you don't catch me streaming, then you will catch me somewhere else. Because work, I have a job now, and I usually either when I get home, I either say I'm stream or sleep. Guess what I'm choosing right now? I'm choosing sleeping. Yeah, because I'm not a morning person, and I go to bed late. So
Go to bed late. Sure, sure, sure.
uh,
All right, sweet. Well, thanks for coming on. Thanks for making the time to work through the scheduling stuff with me. And yeah, we're gonna do some wrap up stuff. But yeah, I appreciate you making the time to come on out.
thank you.
We'll catch you later, man.
Bye.
As for everyone else. Yay, it worked! Everyone else, I want to appreciate you all for coming on out and joining us on this episode of the PureJoy podcast. This was all about role playing games with my guest, Stephen Joel. He we talked a lot about today, we talked a lot today about the escapism that role playing games give. We've talked about this in a few episodes, maybe with Adrian back in the beginning, with Kryn Krea recently, but I mean that's an important part, right? Allowing us to escape from the daily grind of our life to experience something out of the ordinary is a great reason to find joy in something that allows you to relax outside of your day, something that changes the flow and allows you to escape. um it also, yeah, like I said multiple times, just allows us to experience things that we couldn't in that daily life, which is why a lot of fantasy or role-playing games are centered around the fantasy or the high tech or the ancient things that we can't grasp in our daily modern lives. And yeah, a lot of it seems like our favorite parts about this, the decisions we make matter, and we can see that in the world. Not every game can execute upon that, like we talked about in a recent episode, Pokemon Scarlet Violet, right? Like, the decisions you make don't particularly matter. It's a very more stereotypical JRPG where it's collect, grind, hit next story point, grind, collect, hit next story point, just keep rolling. But it's a very good example of a JRPG in which you're doing those things. But your choices, whenever you're offered a chance to say yes or to say no, they don't particularly affect whether the storyline, whether you say yes or no. But things like The Witcher, things like Elden Ring, like when you answer an NPC or when you talk to someone, it actually affects where they'll be in the world, who they'll see, who they'll talk to. Will that get back to you, and how that affects like where you go is a really enveloping mechanic of a lot of these games, be that JRPGs, traditional RPGs, tabletop RPGs. We've talked about a lot of different role-playing games, but it's sort of, it's about that escapism. Yeah. Yeah. And I definitely think I fall into the same boat, right? Like I enjoy myself something, a game that can wrap me up and take me out of whatever I'm thinking for the moment. So I think I think that that's something that we could all find joy in, a little bit of escapism in our daily lives. I want to appreciate all of you for coming on out and listening to this episode of the Pure Joy podcast. I want to thank Mayonnaise and Myrna I want to thank Mayonnaise and Murda for allowing me to use their music in the edits of the podcast. We're talking intro, outro, as well as the transitions in between. You can find them on Spotify, on SoundCloud, wherever you find your music. You can find Mayonnaise and Murda. Go check them out, download their music, boost them up. Make sure that while you're listening to this, you go and you rate us on iTunes. Wherever you can put a rating, rate us. Let us know what you think about the show, what we can, what you want to hear. If there's any particular topics, maybe I can look for a specific guest. Yeah. I want to thank Zen. I want to thank Steven for coming on out and joining us, sharing his joy with us, and letting us into why role-playing games give him so much joy. I think that's all that we got on this episode of the PureJoy podcast. I want to thank you folks for joining, and we'll see you next time.